and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
So recently, Dr. Phil went on The View, and I think this might be the last time he ever gets invited.
I want to make sure we get to your new book, which is We've Got Issues. And a lot, you were referring to it in the last segment, how much has changed since you first got started in this. And one of the things is social media. So you say you're not the only voice in your kids' ears, so you have to be the best voice. Explain that.
Well, think about it. In like 08, 09, smartphones came on. And kids stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives. And so we saw the biggest spike and the highest levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and suicidality since records have ever been kept. And it's just continued on and on and on. And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years.
It's about to get fun.
Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save kids' lives.
They immediately chime in, well, there was a pandemic going on. They were trying to save kids' lives, except for the fact that we knew from the very beginning that the children were the least vulnerable and that shutting down schools and keeping kids at home was awful. There were tons of epidemiologists, tons of psychologists, all kinds of professionals who were saying this is a bad idea. They were silenced, they were censored, and we knew this from the beginning.
Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this. So it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating bond, but, well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the places that they could be sick, because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Well, Phil, we don't even have time to talk it out.
Of course you don't even have time. I mean, he's got them dead to rights on that, guys. Like, you can tell that as soon as he started talking, like, everything was cool when he was like, yeah, smartphones came out, it's been awful for children's mental health. Then as soon as he said the C word, the fangs came out, the claws came out, they were ready to go hard on, well, we were saving lives. And the fact that we kept children out of school is why they didn't get COVID, when in fact we know that they are just less susceptible to any negative effects of COVID. We've known that since the beginning, like I said. And they realized pretty quickly that he's just absolutely owning them on this. He gets the audience of The View to applaud for him when he says that lockdowns were far more detrimental to children than anything, than COVID, anything. And you get the question in there, well, are you saying no school children died of COVID? And the answer to that is yeah, because any young person that did die with COVID had a number of comorbidities, and that's applicable across all demographics for the most part. Anyone who died with COVID or from COVID, it was typically a number of comorbidities. I think the average was 3 or 4. They were obese, they were diabetic, they were extremely old, past the life expectancy for the average person. So there was no healthy person, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments on this, I haven't found any evidence. There was no healthy person who got COVID and died from it. It was always a scenario where you had to have a number of comorbidities, and then it was kind of the nail in the coffin that sealed the deal for you. And by the way, that happens with flu, that happens with the common cold, that happens with all kinds of things, where if you're a very sickly individual, if you're obese, if you're diabetic, if you have any underlying conditions and you get the flu or any number of common ailments that many of us get and get rid of within days, you can suffer extreme consequences. This is why I say take care of your health, people. Your health is of utmost importance. And this was, if any message, aside from the fact that the government wants to control us and ruin our lives and et cetera, if there's any other message from the whole COVID thing, it's that you need to take charge of your health and take care of yourself. But you notice very quickly, man, they're like, let's get out of here. Sorry, we don't have time to talk about this any further. Our audience is clapping for you. We don't like this. We're uncomfortable. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Let me know what you guys think. I think Dr. Phil, recently he was on Rogan. He came out pretty based on a lot of things, to use some popular vernacular of the day. And he's not playing around, man. He's never really been partisan, but he's speaking up on a lot of issues, whether it's the border crisis or the lockdowns and vaccine and everything, all the buzzwords you're not allowed to say or not supposed to say. He's speaking out, and I think that's why he's starting this new network. I'm excited to see where it goes. All right, thank you guys so much. Please subscribe to the channel if you find value in this. I'll see you next time.